Well, welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. This episode is brought to you from Mike's Badger's Rest Bushcraft Camp, one of the two camps he's got on his other show, TA Outdoors. Now, I'm going to be making myself a bit of a bacon and egg sandwich, a combo in a minute, and a cup of tea. But first, I want to tell you about one of the best baits you can get. It's lugworm. So simple to get, bit of back-breaking work. You need a couple of things: a fork, oh yeah, and a young son who's strong enough to dig these worms up for you. This is how you collect them. We're staying up with Mark and Trish Gannon. There's plenty of lugworm casts. Boy, you should see some of these casts. We're going to be doing just straight open trench digging, and we'll give it a crack and see if we can't get some bait, and then that opens up a whole world of options of shore fishing for us. Now, there's no shortage of worm casts here. It's like, well, the surface of the moon really. But you think, well, if I'm a beginner, where do I start? Well, listen, you start with one of these, add some of that, that's right. Bit of elbow grease. It's not easy, it's hard work. The more you put in, hopefully, the more you get out. But starting, me personally, I don't like this sort of silkweed or whatever it is that's all over the mud flat here. I don't like that. I like to dig somewhere down here that's clear and open, plenty of worm casts, and basically, I'm not digging for an individual worm, I'm just starting a trench and hoping I sort of stumble across them. Right, what I've done here is I've started to make just a straight trench the width of this, just one spit. I pick up worms or I don't pick up worms, but what I'm going to do now is coming from the side, because you'll find if you look here it's easier to break into the second time around. I've already broken this open, so for me to get a fork in there and just lever backwards like this, it's much easier than, you know, digging a whole one out. So my suggestion, my way is I dig a bit of a trench 6 or 8 feet long, and then I break into that trench from the side, and I find it's much easier just to push the fork in. I don't need to put my foot on it or anything. And just work your way along. Now when the tide's flooding, you're going to find it starts to fill up. Now back here where it's already starting to fill up, you can actually see it creeping in. So what you want to try and do is to keep that clear all the time so you're not digging in water. Otherwise, you know, you're going to miss the worms every time. There we go. There's a nice Irish lugworm. Going to put them in the bait tin ready, and then we're going to wash them off. If you get them bust with a fork like this, don't worry, most species will still eat them. I just leave it. Oh, here we go, here we go. Now this one, let's ease out very slowly. Don't want to snap it. Let's wash him off. That one there, put him down for you. It's like a white rag. I'm not even sure they're across, but you can see how they move. They've got a lot of movement. And the matchmen particularly, they probably put, say, a lugworm on, and then they'll tip it off with a half or a whole one of these rag, because they get more movement at the end. They say it's very, very good for flatfish. So that one can go in as well. It's not fake, it's totally awesome. Look at the size of, oh my God, it's a double whammy. Oh, I love it. Let's get them washed off. There now. They're washed off. You can see these are what we call regular blow lug. They're not black lug. They're sort of, what colour would you call this? A sort of greeny colour there and a little bit of red in it. That's a regular blow lug. Very, very good. They don't keep more than really a couple of days. You have to put them in paper to keep them dried out. They're good fresh. When you get them fresh like this, do not, if you're digging near a stream, wash them in the fresh water of the stream. That will kill them. You need to rinse them in seawater, and then just keep them in your bait tub, and when you get ready to use them, you put them in paper to soak any excess moisture up. That is an ideal bait for bass in a surf beach, flounders in an estuary, wrasse absolutely love them, and of course anything else that's swimming around are not going to turn their noses up at a bait like that. And there's one other thing that you need when you're digging for a lugworm. Try and invest in one of these. They don't come cheap, but I'll tell you what, they save my back. There you go. Off you go, son. Cheers, Dad. That's what you're here for. One of the things you want to do when you are digging on the beach is, just out of courtesy, try and backfill the worst of those holes. Somebody might come and trip in them, you don't know. Obviously, most of the time, the first tide that comes in washes it all back into the hole, it all levels off, everybody's happy. But just out of courtesy, not the worst of it, level it out a bit. Right here guys, the tide's pouring in. I'm just going to let that fill up in this little pool. It's absolutely roaring in here. Rinse off all the surplus. And do you know what, I'm actually going to leave them in here until I get back up to Wood Point and put them in some paper. I'm going to then strain all this off, watch sure you don't lose any worms in there. Don't worry about the busted ones. Give them another rinse off, freshen them up. And there you go, look at that. You could not ask for better prime bait. And we hopefully will be able to show you a fish later on with them. Lovely. And if you think lugworm are good bait, while we're on the subject of digging, what about digging up some sand eels? Now you guys must have get frozen sandals, I guess you know that. Frozen sandals, packets of, from tackle shops. You cannot beat a live sand eel for bass, plaice, pollock, coalfish. It's supreme bait, and you can get it by digging your own. It's tough work, and here's a few tips on how to collect sand eels yourself. Right, now here's a totally awesome tip guys. When you're turning this over, you need to grab, not the sand eel, don't grab the sand eel. When you're turning over like this, they're going flick, 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 flick. You'll see them dancing on the sand. If it's not too wet, if it's wet, they're gone anyway. Look, let's pretend I'm going to see one. I go, one, grab it. Don't try and pick up the sand eel like this with your tips of your fingers. It ain't happening. They're called quicksilver for a reason. They bury straight in anything that's got a bit of moisture. They're, if you like the predator prey, they think something's after them. They're going deep in the sand. They are called a sand eel. So grab a handful of grit around them. That will give you enough of a, if you like, abrasion that they won't slip out your fingers. Squash them up like that. Put that in your bucket or your bowl of water, because the grit sinks to the bottom. The sand eels come out and they just lay it or bury in there. You can sort the grit out later. You'll probably miss every one if you try and pick it up with your fingers. Okay, now it's almost impossible to dig sand eels on your own because it's so fast. Your reactions have to be like grease lightning. But if you are on your own, you'll find it easier if you roll that shovel of sand onto the hard sand behind you. There's just a, I want to say a millisecond. There's a half a second before that eel will go back down through the sand. It just gives you a chance to grab them. If you throw them on the loose stuff on your own, you probably won't get them. So roll that spit of gravel over and toss it onto the hard, smooth gravel behind you, and you'll see them dancing around. Grab them, the same method I said, a load of grit round there, put them in the live bait tank. Another totally awesome tip is don't walk up to these gravel bars and walk on top of the bar itself where the hump comes down, where the tides run over. That's where they're going to be, because they come up from down tide and they bury into the back of that hump. So your first few forkfuls need to be in the back end, the trailing end, the downside of the gravel bar or the gravel hump. And then you start turning it over. You might get 2 rows if you like, so you might do 1 long row of spits, the width of the fork, and the second one is worth a go after that. If you go too far up into the gravel bar, I feel, my personal experience will be that they felt the vibration of the fork in the first 2, they've gone down deep, you'll never get them out. So it's most important the first 2 digs, you know, the 2 rows you get are the fast ones. Turn them over fast. You're trying to surprise that sand eel and get him up, spot him, grab him as fast as you can. Okay, another tip that is here is look for the different grades of gravel, because the tide here, don't forget, the best of sand eel digging is on a low water spring tide, because that goes out as far, you know, as you're ever going to walk on a spring tide. That's the bottom end of the tidal scale, but also it's very powerful, so it makes a lot of scours, and the ridges should be more pronounced. And you can see this by the different types of shingle and gravel, a sort of delineating line between the fine gravel which they like and the bigger stones which haven't got washed away. They're just tumbled over in the back end of it, if you like. It's like a little overfall, little bank of an overfall current. That's another tip. But don't forget, you've got to get the tides right. On a neap tide, which doesn't go in and out very far, the gravel bars might not be exposed. You're looking for low water spring tides. They're the ones to go digging out there for your sand eels. Now if I can catch one of these in the bucket, this is the small size that the majority of mackerel, small bass, small pollock will eat. If you can see that one there, that's about what? Whoa! That one is about 3 inches long. That's about the size that most small to medium fish will be eating all the time. And if you think about it, that there is about the length of a traditional feather that we use to catch the fish, and that is what mackerel feathers are supposed to represent, is a thin sliver of sandal like that one there. On the other hand, if you want bigger fish like bass, we have dug up the Godzilla of sandals. This one is definitely a bass and a pollock. Look at that, that is an absolute beautiful bait. Now you can keep those alive or you can drop them, but as you can see here, we've got him on hard sand. He can't get down, he can't dig, he can't get into that, whereas he can get into the gravel. I'll just show them to you there, you can have a good look. Wash them off, you know what's a live sandal, and that's dug, that's not bought, we've dug it ourselves, and that's a perfect bait. You can either go through both eye sockets with a single hook, you can go in the bottom of the jaw, bring it out and nick in the belly of the hook here, belly of the, below the organs. You don't want to kill it, you want it live, and that is deadly for pollock and bass. That's the ultimate bait. That one must be, I guess what, 5 inches long, that one. He's dancing like that. Grab the sand around it like this and grip it. Grab the whole sand around the eel to give you the, the actual bit of grip for grip to hold it, and then just drop it into your tank like that, or your live bait bucket, container, whatever you're going to use. You can't beat the sound of sizzling bacon, indeed the smell of it, over a campfire. Takes some beating, but something that does take some beating is when you go perch drop shotting and you get something you don't really expect. We were drop shotting up on the River Thames, up around the Oxford area, just working our way in different areas, different sections of river and streams, fishing away, having a really tough day of it. And then, right on last knockings when we were going home, boom, one of the guys gets a pike. Me, I'm about to put eggs in here. Now that's what you call hot, guys. But also, what's hot are the trout fishing tips I'm about to give you now. They might just help you catch 1 or 2 extra fish. Okay, so when you're casting in a confined area, try and look at your back cast, and you'll see I'm turning backwards and forwards, trying to send the fly line back up into that gap by the shed. Now, onto retrieves. Don't be afraid, even in cooler conditions, to strip that fly quite fast. A trout will accelerate. A lot of guys make the mistake of not breaking up that retrieve. They're just constant sort of monotone retrieve, if there's such a thing. So I like to go fast, long ones, then you can always break that up with short, fast tweaks, and then go back to the long, slow one. The one I do like to do is, after I'm watching my back cast there, is to go out by the side of this bush and make sure that any fly line basically that's left over doesn't go around your feet or tangle up in bushes, anything like that. So you can see long, at least 1 foot to 15 inch strips in fast, and then I can break up into those fast tweaks, and there you can see it. I send the cast backwards a couple of times into a gap in the tree by that shed. That's the only gap I've got to get a long cast out. Otherwise my back cast goes up into the bushes behind. I'm now into an area of the lake here, which is Frensham Trout Fishery in Surrey, where maybe the other anglers haven't put their fly, and although it's commercial, you know, it's a put and take, anybody can go there, it's a day ticket. I like to be able to cover an area that somebody maybe hasn't put a fly through, because there could be trout resting there that will take, providing, you know, you can cover them with that fly. Just make sure, as I say, you do not get your foot over the fly line, because if you get a take and got your foot over it, you will snap, obviously, your leader when the fish takes. And of course, if you're continually treading on the plastic coating of the fly line, you're going to have a problem. So here we are, even from a seated position, I managed to film, balance the camera, and get hooked up to a fish. Now listen, there's several different ways of playing a fish. If you're a beginner, and that's what we're aimed at, don't be afraid to strip the line in by hand, the loose line, and pinch it as I am in my right hand there. When the fish pulls away, you can release that. Very, very easy to do. It's quite, not what say it's difficult fighting a fish off the reel, that's how I'd normally do it, but if you've got a long line out, very often if the fish comes towards you, then you're going to have a lot of slack line and the hook can actually fall out. Well, we don't want that, do we? So don't be afraid to strip down tight onto the fish, always using that rod as your spring or your cushion in case it tears away again. So be prepared. I'm just holding the line in my right hand, pinching it in my fingers. If the fish wants to go, I just release it and let it slip and slide through my fingers so it doesn't snap off. Always try and use that rod as a cushion and try to sort of preempt any lunges. Obviously, the more fish you catch, the more experience you get, you're going to lose fish, guys. We all lose fish, can't be helped. But you're using that rod as a cushion, and you're basically, it's a spring stroke a cushion, but you want to make sure that you don't keep that rod pointing at the fish when you're fighting it. And here we are, here's a nice rainbow from Frensham. It's catch and release here. You can have tickets to take the fish, or you can pay a ticket, what's called a sporting ticket, or you used to. Always check the websites, as they say, in case the rules have been changed. But it's one of the very, very few places where I love going, because you can do catch and release trout fishing, and quite decent sized trout. So this one, I don't even need to take him out of the water, unhook him there. Flies, well, you can use large flies, but I tend to find for fish up to about, say, 2.5 pounds, although they will hit a big lure, if they start on natural feed, they're more likely to take something small, like a damsel nymph, or maybe even a shrimp, something like that. So although I've got other fly boxes, you can see there's not more than about 10 or 15 different patterns, 20 patterns in here, each side. And make sure you do a good knot when you tie. A tuck blood knot is a handy one to use. And just a bit of spit on there, that's what I was doing then, so the knot pulls down without burning the nylon itself. Snip off the tag end, you can see you've got a pair of scissors there. Now they're on a lanyard, an extendable lanyard, which is dead handy. So you can cut any tag ends off, put the tag ends back in your tackle box after you pick them up off the floor. But these scissors have actually got a pair of jaws at the top, which are flat for crushing the barb on hooks, or taking the hook out indeed. So it's handy, I use it on that lanyard for crushing the hooks down, because if you go on a sporting ticket, it's barbless. To make that leader sink, I don't buy anything from the tackle shops. I just use a small plastic bottle with just kitchen detergent, just washing up liquid in there, neat. You can dilute it if you want. I smear a bit on the fly, I smear it all the way out the leader, and that helps it cut through the surface film and gets your fly down to where the fish are. Now you can see on this one I'm actually using the reel for winding. I'm not stripping in by hand, just trying to show you the two different ways of doing it. And you've got to be really on the ball to do this, and obviously if the fish comes towards you quickly, you're going to have to wind quickly. You also might or might not have a ratchet mechanism on the reel, in which case you will have to use what's called rim control with either your fingertip or your palm, or as I'm doing here with my right hand finger, I can slow that line down with some friction as well, just so it doesn't jerk, doesn't snatch. You don't want the fish breaking off. And just wind nice and smoothly, draw that rod vertical so it's pulling all the time, and hopefully you can get that trout either in, so you can take him home for tea, or you can release them as I'm doing here. As I say, there's very few fisheries that allow catch and release. Frensham is one of them that does, and that's great. Look at the condition of this fish. Just a quick look for the camera, slide it back over the rim of the landing net, and away it goes for another day. Okay, now here I'm stripping the fish in because it's a big fish, because it's a wild brown trout. Now this is something quite unusual to catch in lakes. Most put and take trout fisheries have obviously stocked fish that are grown on and to a much larger size than this. This is a perfect wild brown trout that has been bred in that lake naturally, as I call it, as English as the Spitfire. That's the fly it took. So we'll have a go at a big fly. If you really want to catch these, dry fly is a good way to do it, and very, very small nymphs and slow retrieve. Generally, these browns are not stupid even at this size, and they come out better to a slow retrieve. And putting them back is absolutely the best way to go. Another rainbow hooked on in one of the other pools over there. Now don't be afraid to mix up the areas you're casting to, because there are platforms to fish from, but I like to go to the left and right of those. So I like to mix it up and maybe put my fly where nobody else has been casting. You can do slow retrieves, but please don't just get into that monotonous state, cast, retrieve, retrieve, retrieve. Make sure you break up the speed of the retrieve. Long slow draws, short tweaks, pauses, and lift off slowly so you can actually see the fly in the water, because very often a trout will follow in and crash take at the last moment. What about that? Great trout fishing tips. A bacon and egg sandwich done to perfection, of course. No sandwich like this is complete without sauce. Red or brown? What do you guys like? Now that's a big bacon and egg sandwich. Thanks for watching the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. More like the Totally Awesome Cooking Show. Hope you got a few tips out of there. Bit of interest, different types of fishing for you. Watch out for Mike's TA Outdoors, which is going crazy. Get a free copy of the downloadable Awesome Angler. I am going to have a piece of one awesome bacon sandwich. And they say carbon's not good for you.